Okay. So can we continue? Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So thank you very much for waiting. Okay. So because I had an appointment for your backlog and like the fail exams, so we have a meeting about that and we finalized the decision. Everything is fine now. So and you like RIB exam will be online. So please follow all the rules if you have any RIB exam. And I exam, R exam will be on, R means referred exam will be online, and I means like improvement exam will be physically you have to come, and then you can sit for online exam. Physically you have to come to the university for improvement exam, okay, and then you can do online. So let's start today's class. So I'm recording, okay, so start recording. Hello everyone, good morning. This is Professor Dr. Muhammad Shamim Akhtar. Today we are talking about artificial intelligence, and the lecture is about to overview of AI. So we are mainly focusing on what is AI and what are the researchers are doing in the discipline of AI. Okay. So now let's start. So the first question is coming to your mind when you take this subject. What is AI? Like artificial intelligence. What is artificial intelligence? So before going to explain or defining AI, let's separate the I from A. So we have I and from A. So A and I are different. I mean, let's take the I. From artificial intelligence, we take I. So I basically refer to intelligence. So what does the intelligence means? Intelligence means that the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. So you will acquire the knowledge and apply them, okay, and get the skills. So let's see an example that when a child will touch the hot pot, so that times if there is a water in there, hot water is in there, so he carefully touch, so that times first times he will touch without knowing that there is a hot, something feeling hot. So when he touch, he will feel that his skin, he will feel that it's feeling bad. Okay, so he will move his hand. Next time when he touch the hot pot again, he will touch carefully. Why? Because he has been skilled and get the knowledge that and acquire the knowledge that the hot pot should be touched carefully if the water inside or if the contents inside the bowl is hot, so you should not touch that. It should be, you should carefully touch that. So that's the knowledge you gain. So that's called intelligence. So you acquire, you learn, and then implemented that. So that is called intelligent. Fine. So now let's come that when we have one American psychologist, whose name is Howard. So Howard Gardner, who described that intelligence type, there are 9 types of intelligence we have. So one is a naturalist. In this world, we can see 9 types of intelligence: the naturalist, then musical, then logical, mathematical, then existential, then interpersonal, then body kinetics, and then we have linguistic and intrapersonal. So usually the naturalists are basically they can designate the human ability to discriminate among living things. They like plant, animal. So they're dealing with plant, animals, and like in this job we have hunters. So they have some intelligence about to trace that which path trace or track trace, right? So they can also smell that what this is, what kind of things is required by watching the plants, that what kind of soils is required, or is there any water is required to the plant or not. So that kind of things they can monitor by watching the plant. Like farmer, when you go to the village farmer, by watching the cloud, they can say, okay, that there may be rain will come. So that kind of naturalist will have. So naturalist is the farmer, the botanist, gardener, those are called naturalists. So they have some inherent intelligence they have, which is basically called naturalist intelligence. Now you have some musical peoples. They have the capacity to know about the pitch, rhythm, and the tones of some music. Okay, so So in this phrase, we have like musician, composer, vocalist. So the intelligence they have regarding to the musical tones or musical rhythms or musical pitch, they can understand easily. Like they can categorize whose vocalist is this. So that kind of intelligence, we can categorize this one to musical intelligence. So like vocalist, musician, composer, those are in this phrase. Okay, those have this kind of intelligence. Now we have some logical and mathematical intelligence as well. Is the ability to calculate, quantify, and consider propositions and hypotheses and carry out complete mathematical operations. That's mean like if you have some inputs, so hypothesis, if you have, by utilizing these hypotheses, you can carry out some mathematical solutions. If you have this kind of ability, so that kind of intelligence you have. So this is called logical mathematical intelligence. Like we have some mathematician, we have scientists, detectives as well. Detectives also manipulate the things and connect the things together. So that's why detective also logical and mathematical intelligence category they reach. Existential means like people start thinking about their existence, like they have the deep questions, the questions that why they came to this earth, what is the reason we have, what are the taxes we need. So inner deeply they are thinking about their existing, such as like meaning of life, why the people die, and how we can get, how did we can get there. So that kind of things like monks they do, like the sit and the ধ্যান বলি না আমরা ধ্যান করা, so ধ্যান করা মানে কি আসলে আপনার existential space নিয়ে আপনি basically concerned. So that kind of knowledge people have, so they are basically called existential intelligence. They have interpersonal intelligence, like people are very much, some people are very much ability that they can interact effectively with others. Okay, it involves like effective verbal and non-verbal communication, so they can communication very well with the people. Okay, so like teachers, we are communicating with the students. So social workers, actors, politicians, so they are basically they have very much interpersonal skills. So that's why the people they can motivate the people, they can influence the people to do some acts, right? So like politician and can influence the leaderships they have, right? So they can influence the people to do some acts, or they can influence to go towards them, right? So they have some intelligence. That's why people are connected with them. Okay, spatial intelligence. So this one is a spatial intelligence, is basically space related. So 3D, 3-dimension related. So people may like sailor, pilot, they are telling that, okay, so amplitude X, Y, how much away from the ground, so they can measure. So 3-way measurement they can do, like sailors, pilot, architects, painters, they can think like their intelligence are thinking like 3D architectures. Okay, 3D is main. So that's why this is called spatial, means space related things. They have this kind of intelligence. Interpersonal skill or intelligence is that the capacity to understand oneself. I mean, who I am, what I'm doing, what is my feelings to do this act, what kind of things I need to know. Or some people, if I watch some people's the acts, I can understand that what kind of people he is. So that kind of peoples we have, like psychologists, spiritual leaders, or philosophers. So they can monitor your activities, and then they can gaze some things about your future or about your past. So these are basically interpersonal intelligence they have. Then linguistic intelligence, like is the ability to think in word and the language to express. So like poet, novelist, journalist, they writing things, right? So this is one kind of intelligence they have. And we have bodily kinetics intelligence, like the sports dancers. So they have the capacity to manipulate objects and use a variety of physical skills. They do. So so these are the 9 category of intelligence we can find out in this world. So they have different jobs. So that's mean that they have different intelligence they have. Now let's come to define that intelligence we have talked, and differentiation of intelligence we already mentioned that. But now let's come to what is AI. In my view, and Wikipedia is also telling that AI is a combine of science and engineering. Science and engineering, that we are applying to build a machine, and we are also embedding inside the machine some program so that the machine can act or think like human beings, or they can understand what humans are doing. So what the order the human wants to do to him, what kind of act he need to do according to the human command. So this is basically is called artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is the combine of science and engineering in order to build a machine capable to do intelligent behavior or capable to show intelligent behavior. It brings together work from the field of philosophy, psychology, and computer, and contributes to, has drawn the brain science and linguistics. So basically, actually, the new generation of computer science is coming like brain science. So what human beings are thinking, what the human being has knowledge, so what the act he gonna do. So if you want to predict that, so you need to learn the human brain, how the brain acts. Okay, if you want to build up a robot or machine which will behave like human, obviously you need to monitor a genetic pattern about human brain. So that's we are telling that we have several fields related to AI, those like philosophy, psychology, and computer science as well together. So we are going to neurosciences, okay? So to formulate the neuroscience, because neuroscience is major, because we want to monitor and follow the human beings to build up new agents, okay? Or new machines or new robots, right? So in 1990, so that's mean we want to make an intelligence. So we want to make our own intelligence by using some computer program or logic. We can embed this one to machine so that it can be act like human, but that one should be made. So that intelligence should be made by the human. Remember this one. Human is making the intelligence as like his intelligence, right? So, but by using the programming tactics, okay? So in 1980, the AI was just a tool, 1980. So used for the problem solving, and it is using a part of computer science or psychology or philosophy. But now is AI is becoming a very vast discipline which has several branches. Now AI has several branches. Okay, machine learning or pattern generation, pattern expert systems. Okay, so those are the part of AI now. Those are the branches coming from AI. So cognitive learning, the cognitive science, which is basically making the intelligence. So that's basically the cognitive science do. So now the extra discipline is coming from AI. Now AI is not a tool. AI is now a field. AI is now a field where the people can study AI itself. Okay, so that's what we do during the masters. Is a field. So AI has just like intelligence software, so intelligence systems we do. So that kind of things like a field we have created in the postgraduate level, not undergraduate level. So that's why we are telling that now AI is very vast, not like a simple things. As like computer science you are studying, so AI is now becoming a computer science. Although this one is a branches coming from computer science as well. Okay. Now that how to define the AI. Okay, so according to Stuart Russell book, the modern approach, which we are calling like artificial intelligence, the modern approach, I think so, right? So artificial intelligence and modern approach. So AIMA. So in a short form, we call this book. So this book is mentions the AI, defining the AI in 4 categories. So he is telling that artificial intelligence is basically divided into 4 category way. People has defining artificial intelligence. The 4 categories are think like human. If something is thinking like human, so we want to create some intelligence that will think like human. We want to create some machines that will act like human. So the act like human, this one is physically, we have to use our actuators to get some outputs, okay? And then we have thinking like human is basically cognitive level structures. And then we have things rationally. whatever you are thinking, is you are thinking in the right way, or is it the right way you are thinking? What is your knowledge? How do you use your knowledge for right track to take the right decision? How do you decide your goal? So that's basically called thinking rationally and act rationally. So acting rationally, whatever you do the right things. You are not doing the wrong things. So that's is combining. This is called basically AI. So 4 dimensions they have provided in this book has explained. The AI has 4 dimensions now. Like if something is thinking like human, if something is acting like human, if something is thinking rationally and acting rationally, these are basically in the categorized of AI. Okay. Now from this definition, we can find out that there are 2 things here. One is called human, thinking human. So basically we are thinking about the psychology of human brain, how human brain thinks. Okay. And another one is the rational. So human, when you are thinking, so human brain is basically psychological aspects and it's related to the mind, to brain and the mind. Whereas when you say rational, so that's mean rational means the right thing. How do you define the right thing? It should be errorless. How do you define the errorless? So that's mean there are some mathematical evaluation you need to, explanations you need to do. So right mathematics and because you find out how much nearby you are to the goal. So that's basically you have how much error you have, how much precisions you have. So that's you need to find out. So that's basically rationality, because you want to do the right thing, right way. You want to pass to the goal. So that's why the rationality is basically the field of to monitoring the rationality or to measurement the rationality needs the mathematics and engineering as well. Whereas the human is basically the psychological aspects. Okay. Now, another one is human and rationals, and another one is thought. And we have the thought, thinking like human and acting like human. So behavior. So one category is thought, internal thoughts, like how human is thinking. So it's basically internal. Whereas the behavior, which is external. So the 4 categories, category way we are defined. Now let's elaborately explain all 4 fields so that you can understand that what does the things like human, what does the act like human, what basically the things rationally and what's basically the act rationally means. Let's see. Let's go to explore that. Okay. Think like human. Okay. See here. Think like human. If you want to think like human, so there are 3 ways you can investigate that how basically the human is thinking. So like mind reading. Okay. How do you measure that? There are 3 different ways. One is called introspections. Introspection, the way is to try to catch your own thoughts as they go by. So introspections, that's mean I will decide myself, I will look in the mirror, or I will decide myself, I will think inwardly that what I am thinking, okay, myself, own thinking, I will try to my thoughts that okay, like আমরা বলি না যে yoga করেন একটু মনটাকে শান্ত করেন, একটা সেন্ট্রাল পয়েন্টে নিয়ে আসেন, rather than thinking differently, you have to catch this one and come together into a central point. That's basically introspection as well. You are thinking like you are basically trying to understand your own thoughts, what I'm doing. So that's we can do by yoga. Okay, so that kind of things we can do. And then we have like psychological experiments. That's where basically also we can think the human mind or human thinking. Okay, so like we can observing a person's actions, like display objects and show the people, show the subjects. Subject means like the person. So we can show how he react, what is his answer. We can ask some questions and check the accuracy, what kind of answer he's doing. That's why basically we can do some psychological experiment and we can find out his thinking level or what kind of thinking he has, what kind of brain activities or mental inner activities he's feeling. So that kind of things we can measure or we can find out. Okay, then we also have another one which is basically in the neuroscience, which is brain imaging. Okay, so this one I have taken one, functional magnetic resonance imaging, so which is basically called fMRI. So F for functional and magnetic resonance imaging, you know, like fMRI, which is used device, which is MRI scanning device, which is monitoring the oxygen flow in the brain. Oxygen means like blood. Okay, so blood flow in your brain. When you are thinking, the blood flow is differently acting in different places, okay, inside the brain. So blood flow means like oxygen level, because blood cell will take the oxygens, okay, inherit the oxygens and consume the oxygens inside them. So blood flow monitoring. So that's mean that we are scanning the oxygen level in your brain. When you do some activities in a brain part, so that's mean that the oxygen level is higher on that part. So on that way, basically the oxygen levels are in different part, monitoring that way, we can determine that what kind of brain activities or what kind of brain thinking he is doing. So in that way, basically we can monitor, or we can measure, or we can find out that what's the human is thinking. Okay, so the brain is the information, like the processing machine for the human, right? So we need to find out some theories that how brain works. So we have three different ways we can find out that how brain works, because brain is the machine. So how human thinks, basically it is brain is thinking. So if you monitor the brain, so then you can find out how human is behaving. So you can find out the pattern. So there are three different ways we can find out. One is introspection, psychological experiment, and brain imaging. That way, basically, we can find out that how brain works. And all together, we can say those things are basically is now starting in cognitive science. So these are basically brain science. If you want to learn the brain, how it works and how he can do, so that things are how the brain pattern can be generated according to his thinking. So that is basically the cognitive science. So bring together computer model from, so cognitive science bring together the computer models from AI. So cognitive science is basically bring computational model from AI and experimental techniques from psychology. Some experiment techniques from psychology to construct precise and testable theories of the human mind, that how human thinks, so they can find out through the cognitive studies. So that kind of studies we have. So you can do in future, you can go to the cognitive science and you can do a study. So that's why basically we can find out that how human beings can think. Now we are mentioning about act like human. What does the act like human is the meaning here? So let's think about that. Okay, one of the tests is called Turing test, which is defined by Alan Turing. Alan Turing in 1950. So he's telling that computational machinery and intelligence. He had made a book, and in the book he has written that he has notified about a test which is called Turing test. How the Turing test happened? You see here that we have one side, we have a human integrator, and other side we have some human and AI system. AI system means like an agent or robot. Okay, so human beings, integrator, will ask some questions, and the answer will be given by the human or the AI system. But if the human integrator cannot find out who has been answered, this means the AI system is acting like human in a way. Similarly, that's why the human integrator cannot distinguish that is the answer coming from the human or it is coming from the cognitive systems or AI systems. Who is giving this answer? Okay, so that's basically the Turing test. So the portion is that the AI system should have the capability to hold for the Turing test, to sit on the Turing test. So if the systems is like if the human integrator cannot find who is answering, that means the AI system passed the Turing test. That means the AI system or the robot or agent will have some intelligence. So because he is acting like human. So now to build these AI systems, you will need natural language processing, because you need to communicate. So whatever the human is asking questions, you have to understand that. So you need natural language processing. So you need to know that how basically the language you can process. How do you generate the language, or how do you generate the answer? Okay. You also need to know knowledge representation, because the previously you need to store some information. Otherwise, if this kind of questions will come, this kind of answer you need to provide. So that kind of information you need to store, because the human will ask the questions. Either you have to get the sensor from the eye sensor, you have to understand what kind of question is coming, and or you have to image or something like that, or you can hear the speaks from the integrator and you can answer, right? So you need knowledge representation strategies, and also you need automated reasoning. techniques. That's mean to answer questions and draw new conclusions. That's mean that you have to analyze the questions from previously asked by the human integrator, and you have to analyze and you have to find out predictions for new circumstances. Okay, so you should be adaptive for new circumstances. If we ask some other questions really not related to the topics, you should not have to you should have to guess what kind of answer I can provide. So that's the intelligence we have, we can provide by using automated reasoning as well, and obviously machine learning, because you need to classify or you need to evaluate that what kind of answer you should have to provide. Okay, so these kind of things you need to learn. Okay, and also the AI system also need computer vision as well as the robotics, because sometimes he may need to use his actuators, or he need to sense the data or collect the data. So that kind of things robotics and computer vision may need, because he need to the eye contact or scanning the information by the eye. So that kind of vision things is also need to be established. So that's why the computer vision is very important in here. So now the point is that these 6 disciplines composed, so by these 6 disciplines, we can build up a AI system. But AI researchers have devoted little effort to passing the Turing test, believing that it is more important to study. So the people are thinking that, okay, if you need to act like human, you have to study the human, how human act. So you need to study about human, okay? The underlying principle of intelligence of how human is doing. So you need to read those, okay? Study those. And then you have to understand the intelligence, okay? Find out the principle of the intelligence. But many people are telling that, no, it's not the thing. Because the AI system doesn't need to learn about human, because 30% of the 30%, maybe the system can fool the human beings. Okay, so that has been maybe AI systems may not have intelligence that can fool human integrator. I will show you example that those are intelligence they have, but they may not have the they may not have the intelligence, but they can be fool the human beings. Okay, so they do not have the intelligence, but they can fool the human integrator. Okay, so that doesn't mean that the AI systems who is fooling the integrator, that is intelligence. This is not the true things. Whatever the Alan Turing is telling nowadays, the people are not believing on that. Why? Because you see, when we are talking about that fly like a bird, rather than follow the bird, how the bird is acting, how his feather is moving, or how his hand is moving, how his leg is providing, rather than doing that, study aerodynamics. So when the people started to study aerodynamics, they can understand much better how birds fly, rather than monitoring the birds, how they fly. Okay, so that's the point. Rather than how human is doing act, rather than following the human beings, study some other fields that may help you to understand the human activities. So you do not need to monitor, or you don't need to observe how human is thinking or how human is do other things. So then you can understand that. That's why nowadays people are criticize the Turing test. Okay, so how? Let's see the example that I told you that the intelligence system may not. The intelligence systems must always fooling the integrator, human integrator, which is following the human beings. But if they not have the human intelligence, they may also fool the human integrator. Okay, like we have some of the example we have that. Okay, so some human behavior is not intelligent. Sometimes some of the human behavior is not intelligence. Like those are coming some natural way. So that's not intelligent. Okay, so some intelligent behavior may not be human. So some intelligence we may not have. Some others have, like animals has, but we do not have. Okay, so that kind of intelligence may not have with the human, but the other has, like, let's see, আপনার পানির নিচে 100 বছর 1000 বছর বাঁচে, কিভাবে বাঁচে, how he will survive. So that kind of intelligence we don't have. Okay, but the crocodile has, they can go to the under the depth of the water. Okay, they can take their oxygens, they can inherit the oxygens and store in the lunches, but we do not have that way. So that kind of intelligence we don't have. So that's why we are telling that all the intelligence is inside the human, that doesn't fact. And all the human behavior are intelligent, that's also not fact. Okay, so that's mean always monitoring the human doesn't mean to get the intelligence. Okay, so what we can do, let's see some example. Like a lot depends on expectations, how human is expecting, depending on that basically. Okay, and anthropomorphic fallacy, we have one anthropomorphic fallacy. We are thinking that humanized things are intelligent, so we try to implement humanized things on the like assets or robots, right? So attribute human emotion and characteristics to inanimate objects and aspects of nature such as plant, animal, or weather. So for example, we might say that our house plant looks sad. Okay, sometimes we also monitor and implemented the human things into the plant, right? So if you are thinking that plant is getting sick, so you are telling that the plant is sad, but actually the plant is sad, you cannot monitor that. This is a human thinking, human behavior, but that's you cannot monitor on the plant. As well as you cannot say, like sometimes we say that the TV is not working anymore. Okay, so working anymore, work should be done by the human. TV is not working. How can you can say that the TV required repairment because it is an electronic device? So we have the fallacy that we can do and think like everything is like human way. Okay, so that's the major part we have. So that's why we try to create the robots which is like human. Why always the intelligence is always like human? Intelligence can come from different animals as well. Okay, so like now we are telling you two different programs, okay, softwares. One is called chatbots, okay, which is called Eliza, imitate without intelligence. Eliza doesn't have any intelligence. He has some script. He just written with some code script, like, but not the intelligence. They don't have to inherit or adopt the system. Like I have asked several questions that you can go to the site and you can see that how Eliza is working. I have tested this one, and sometimes I fool him, okay? And he also sometimes is, can you elaborate on that? Sometimes some questions is coming, but he doesn't have any intelligence, but he can answer your questions. So answering the questions doesn't mean that he is intelligent, okay? But Eliza doesn't have any intelligence, but he's answering. So I don't know that is it the human beings or is it the machine? So that way, basically, the Turing test is failing here. And also the Chinese room arguments. This is another philosophy, another way to determine that there is no intelligence, but he can pass the Turing test. How? Let's see here. You see here, one Chinese people is asking some questions. Okay, so he is providing the questions so right side down image. Okay, so he is asking the questions, and inside the room I have the one person. Okay, and he get this Chinese question, and he tried to find out the pattern from the book, and he sent the answer, writing the answer, and he sent this answer to that person. So that, what does it mean? A person is giving input, and inside the room the person is taking that slip, and he's writing one Chinese answer and sending it out to that person. So now what the person will guess, if he cannot see inside, what the person will guess? He can guess that, okay, inside that we have a person who is wise, who knows Chinese very well, because he can answer my question. So he knows very well Chinese language. However, what the man can do, inside the man has a book which is telling some pattern. Let's see here. Let's see this pattern. If the input is coming, these characters, and then followed by this character, and then followed by this character, then you have to answer the red one. Okay, so in the book he can go and he can find out the pattern, and if the pattern is coming, he can provide the result in that way. But he doesn't have any intelligence, but he can answer your questions. So he can foolish the human beings. See that he can foolish the human beings. So Turing test is fail here. So is it machine or is it human beings? Nobody can understand, but he doesn't have any intelligence, but he can fool the people. So fooling the people doesn't mean that the Turing test he's acting like human. Okay, he has intelligence like human, or he's acting like human. So that's why we are telling that, okay, passing the Turing test is a good scientific goal. For engineering perspective, no, not a good way to solve practical problems. So we can create intelligence without trying to imitate humans, without following always the human beings. Okay, so we can create the intelligence as well. So that's the nowadays the Turing test is criticized in that way. Okay, so that's basically the acting like human doesn't mean that intelligence nowadays. Okay, so although the book has referred this one, okay, the Turing test is basically acting like human is basically intelligence. Okay, but now we are defining that no, that's not the things. Although acting like human, what is acting like human, you understand. Okay, now let's go thinking rationally, the loss of thoughts. Okay, thinking rational, right way you have to think. Okay, so idealized or right way you have to thinking. So rationality means rational means like right way, right things you need to do. So that's basically rational. Okay, the logic. How much time we have? 20 minutes.
Sir, our class is supposed to go on until 12:20.
Your class should be
12:20, sir.
12:20. So can I stop here?
Sir, we can continue.
But I have another class.
Sir,
Yes, sir, we can stop here.
I have another class with 12:30, right? So we can continue, right? So 12:30. I have another class with 12:30. So okay. So let's think about this one, and then I will stop it here after that. Okay. So let's think about this one. Okay. So now we are telling about what is thinking rationally. So thinking rationally is basically the logic. Okay. So the logic established by the Socrates or Aristotle. Okay. So that kind of logics. Okay. Let's see. Pattern of argument that always yield correct conclusion when supplied the correct promises. So the logic is telling that if you have correct premises, so your output will be always correct. So you will get the correct conclusion. Like, see here, Socrates is a man, all men are mortal. So your conclusion will be, so the premises are correct. Socrates is a man, correct premises. And all men are mortal. This is also correct premises. So from these premises, we can conclude, the conclusion can be, for Socrates is mortal. Socrates is man, all men are mortal, so Socrates is mortal. So the conclusion is also correct. So that's basically the logic, which is telling that if the premises is correct, then your conclusion is also correct. So that's mean that this is the logic we established by Aristotle. Okay. So philosopher and mathematician have attempted to formalize the rules of logical thoughts. So logically, how do you think? So that has been formalized by some linguistic way. So that's why we have prepositional logic, we have first order logic to represent the reasoning or represent the knowledge. How do you represent the knowledge? So that's basically the knowledge based things. So that's, we can define the thinking of rationality. Okay, so logic based approach to AI describe problem in formal language motions and apply general deduction procedure to solve it. Like we have conclusions in here. So how do you deduct in this one? Like Socrates is a man. So logic we established and we make the conclusion. So that way, basically, we can do logic-based approach to AI. That's why I'm telling that first order logic is there, prepositional logics are there. From there, we can make some conclusions from the premises. Now, what is the problem in here? It is thinking rationally. Fine, we understand. But what is the problem in here nowadays? What is the problem? You see, the difference is that describing real-world problems, you can think about this way, but the real-world problems and knowledge to represent in logical notations is very difficult. Very difficult. Okay, like I can give you one example. That's the example I have provided in here. Okay, P implies Q. If you go for that, so we want that if A, then B is true. B. Okay, so if this one, if you want to write in logic, so A trans B, that's how we are telling, right? So, but sometimes, so that's been what? If A is true, then B is true, right? So, but actually this is not happening in the implications. From the discrete mathematics, you can go to the truth table of this one, and you will say that if A is false, then also this can be true. This one can be true. So always the same thing is happening. So the real life situations implementing in the logic is very difficult. Very difficult. Okay, so that's one of the problem. And there may be some notations are not. We have restricted notations are there to represent the knowledge. Okay, so that's one kind of problem we may have. Computational complexity to find the solution, like to driving from like this kind of premises we have. Premises like we will do in the first order logic, we'll do that. Okay, so we'll drive the solution up from the first order logic, and we'll establish the solution by using some backtrack applications or some way when we solve that. So that's basically a computational complexities in there. So there are a lot of computational complexities there to find out the solution for that, to driving the right way, right sequence, and then find out the conclusion. A lot of intelligence is rational behavior is uncertain world. Sometimes in the uncertain world, you cannot do always the right thing. Okay, you as a human beings also, we cannot say that I am doing always right things. How the agent can we do always the right things or always thinking in the right way? Okay, so it has nothing to do with logic. Sometimes with some uncertain world, okay, some situation may occur which doesn't established in the logic. Okay, so that's the true fact. And the last one is thinking, acting rationally. Let's talk about this one later because I have a mathematics to explain in here as well. So let's talk about this one to the next class. Okay, so do you have any question?
আসসালামুয়ালাইকুম।
Assalam, yes.
স্যার মানে একটা কথা বলতাম, আপনি যদি ক্লাসটা একটু বাংলাতে নিতেন মানে
বাংলায় নিতে হবে স্যার।
মানে স্যার সবার প্রবলেম না হলে একটু প্রবলেম হচ্ছে তো।
হ্যাঁ
মানে
হ্যাঁ
মানে বাংলাও না, একটু যদি ট্রাই করতেন স্যার।
আচ্ছা, আমি ইংলিশে বলবো, সাথে হয়তো একটু বাংলা বলে দিলাম, তাই তো?
তাইলে
স্যার
স্যার
একটু বাংলাতে বললে স্যার আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ড করতে স্যার এটা সহজ হতো। মানে
আচ্ছা,
আমরা হচ্ছে ইংলিশে স্যার ক্লাস করিনি তো স্যার, যার কারণে হঠাৎ করে স্যার একটু
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা আচ্ছা
বুঝতে
এগুলো
সমস্যা
ভিডিও
হচ্ছে।
ভিডিও হয়ে যাচ্ছে, এগুলো ভিডিও হয়ে যাচ্ছে, আমি স্টপ করি। হ্যাঁ, স্টপ রেকর্ডিং। হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে, আনঅফিশিয়ালি আমরা হয়তো কিছুটা বাংলায়ও বলবো কথাটা। একটা জিনিস আমি তো অনেকগুলো বাংলায় বলতেছি, যেমন এখানে আমি অ্যানথ্রোপরফিক মরফিক ফ্যালাসি যখন আমি বললাম, তখন তো আমি বললাম যে আপনি যদি হিউম্যানাইজ থিংকে যদি গেস করতে চান, আপনি সবসময় চিন্তা করেন যে হিউম্যানের মতো ইমপ্লিমেন্টেশন হবে, সে হলো ইন্টেলিজেন্ট। যে হিউম্যানের মতো অ্যাক্ট করবে, হিউম্যানের মতো থিঙ্ক করবে, সে হলো ইন্টেলিজেন্ট। হিউম্যানের মতো অ্যাক্ট করবে, সে হলো ইন্টেলিজেন্ট। বাট আমরা বলতেছি ওয়াই দিস ওয়ান? আর কোনো অ্যানিমেল নাই, অন্যান্য কেউ নাই যে আরো ইন্টেলিজেন্ট হতে পারে, বা হিউম্যানের মতো না হলেও অন্যদিকে তো ইন্টেলিজেন্ট হতে পারে। সেই জিনিসগুলো কেন আমরা ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করি না? সবসময় কেন হিউম্যান 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 নিয়ে থিঙ্ক করতেছি? আমরা টিউরিং টেস্টটাকে কি ডিসিশন করলাম? যেমন আমরা বললাম যে এলিজা একটা চ্যাটবোট আছে, সো এলিজায় যদি যান তাহলে দেখবেন ওর কোনো ইন্টেলিজেন্ট নাই, তারপরেও সেই কিন্তু ভালোই কনভারসেশন আপনাকে করবে, এবং আপনি ডিটারমাইন হতে পারবেন, আপনি ফুল হবেন, আপনি ডিটারমাইন হতে পারবেন না যে সেটা কি রোবট দিয়ে লিখতেছে, প্রোগ্রাম দিয়ে লিখতেছে, নাকি একটা হিউম্যান বিইংস লিখতেছে। তারপরে আবার বললাম, তার মানে কি? তার মানে হলো ইন্টেলিজেন্ট না থাকলেও সে মানুষকে ফুল করতে পারে। তাহলে টিউরিং যে তার যদি ইন্টেলিজেন্ট থাকে, কোন একটা সিস্টেমে যদি ইন্টেলিজেন্ট থাকে, সে মানুষকে ফুল করতে পারে। কিন্তু আমরা বললাম যে চ্যাটবোট এবং চাইনিজ রুম আর্গুমেন্ট, এই যে দুটো প্রবলেম দুটো দেখালাম, এই যে চাইনিজ রুম আর্গুমেন্টে কি হয়েছে, একটা চাইনিজ ম্যান, চাইনিজ মানুষ, সে একটা স্লিপ দিয়েছে, তার মধ্যে একটা চাইনিজ কোশ্চেন লেগেছে। সে মনে করতেছে যে ঘরের ভিতর একজন যদি মানুষ সে চাইনিজ জানে, তাহলে সে ওয়াইজ মানুষ, এবং সে যদি চাইনিজ জানে, বুদ্ধিমান মানুষ, এবং সে যদি চাইনিজ জানে, আমার কোশ্চেনের অ্যান্সার দিতে পারবে। আমার কোশ্চেনের অ্যান্সার সে অন্য দিক দিয়ে বের করে দিল, সে চাইনিজেই লিখলো, অ্যান্সারটা লিখলো চাইনিজে, সে বের করে দিল। তাহলে এই মানুষটা মনে করতেছে, এই মানুষটা কিন্তু ফুল হয়ে গেল, সে মনে করতেছে এই লোকটা হচ্ছে চাইনিজ জানে এবং সে অনেক ওয়াইজ, সে একটা অ্যান্সার দিয়েছে। আসলে এই লোক কিন্তু চাইনিজ জানে না, সে শুধু ইংলিশ জানে। সে কি করেছে, একটা বই নিয়েছে, বই নিয়ে দেখেছে এর পরে এটা যদি থাকে এবং তারপরে যদি এটা থাকে তাহলে অ্যান্সার হবে এইটা, সে সেইভাবে অ্যান্সার দিয়েছে। কিন্তু সে তাকে বলতেছে আমরা ইন্টেলিজেন্ট, তাহলে ফুল হলো না, সে ইন্টেলিজেন্ট তো সে নয়। তাহলে টিউরিং টেস্ট এখানে ফেলিয়ার হলো না? টিউরিং টেস্ট যে কথাটা বলতেছে সেটা ফেলিয়ার হলো। সেটাই আমরা বলতেছি যে সব সময় হিউম্যান বিহেভিয়ার করলেই বা হিউম্যানের মতো অ্যাক্ট করলেই যে সে ইন্টেলিজেন্ট হবে এমন নাও হতে পারে, সেটা আমরা প্রুফ দেখালাম। বুঝা গেছে কথাটা? এনিওয়ে, সো আমি এরকম ভাবে হয়তো একটু আবার বলবো, ঠিক আছে? সো আজকে এই পর্যন্তই, আমরা নেক্সট ক্লাসে অ্যাক্টিং রেশনালি থেকে আমরা আবার শুরু করব, ঠিক আছে? আমরা শেষ করে দিব আর কি এটা নেক্সট ক্লাসে। হ্যাঁ
স্যার,
আচ্ছা,
স্যার ক্লাসরুমটা,
হ্যাঁ
জি স্যার,
ক্লাসরুম 4006
ক্লাসরুমটা এখনো কাজ করতেছে না
স্যার। সম্ভবত স্যার গুগল ড্রাইভের অ্যাক্সেস দেওয়া নাই স্যার ক্লাস।
না অ্যাক্সেস ওটা আমি আজকে ঠিক করতেছি। আমি ওই যে আমাদের স্যারদের সাথে বসে ওটা ঠিক করে ফেলবো। আমার মনে হয় ওটা যেহেতু ওই যে বাউস্টির আন্ডারে বোধহয় আছে, যেহেতু বাউস্টির ডোমেইনে বোধহয় আছে, আপনি বাউস্টির ডোমেইন হলে আপনি পারবেন। বুঝা গেছে কথাটা?
কিন্তু স্যার আমাদেরকে তো মাউসটা ইমেল
হ্যাঁ
অ্যাড্রেস দেওয়া
হ্যাঁ,
হয়।
ওটাই আমি অ্যাক্সেস দেওয়ার চিন্তা করতেছি, আমি দেখি একটু চেষ্টা করতেছি, বুঝা গেছে কথাটা, সমস্যা নেই, একটু ওয়ারিড হয়ে না, আমি ওটা আজকেই ঠিক করে দিচ্ছি। ওকে,
থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার।
so thank you very much for listening to me and see you next class. আমরা হয়তো নেক্সট ক্লাসে কিছু এক্সাম্পল, অ্যাকচুয়ালি রিসার্চ স্টুডেন্ট থাকলে ভালো হতো, ওরা দেখতে পারবে যে কিভাবে অ্যাপ্লিকেশন গুলো হচ্ছে, কিছু অ্যাপ্লিকেশন নিয়ে আমরা কথা বলবো, কথা বলে আমরা এই লেকচার শেষ করে আমরা নেক্সট লেকচারে চলে যাবো নেক্সট ক্লাসে, ঠিক আছে?